Hi, I'm Andy Reed. I work with the University of Missouri Extension as a horticulture specialist covering the South Central region. We're here today to talk about composting, and specifically, composting food scraps. Did you know that nearly 20% of the waste sitting in landfills is made up of food scraps? Most of that comes from residential sources. Many of those scraps can be used to compost and place on the soil as an amendment. Now, the Department of Natural Resources and the Ozark Solid Waste Management District have also noticed that statistic, and they partner with University of Missouri Extension to bring you this program about composting. So we'll teach some techniques, we'll talk about some ingredients and what goes into a healthy compost pile, and hopefully at the end of the day we'll all learn something. So grab your food scraps and let's get composting. We're here today in Dixon, Missouri at Blue Jay Farm. Sue Goodman is the proprietor, and Sue does a lot of really interesting work with vermicomposting. And what vermicomposting is the process of using worms to break down food scraps and break down other carbonaceous material into a very usable product. So I want to go ahead and turn it over to Sue and show us some of what you got here, Sue.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Well, I've been doing vermicomposting for about 3 years now, and I'm going to show you a couple different methods of how to do it. Now, this is showing a tray that's it's ready to be composted. You can see there's this beautiful dark stuff, and the worms are in here hiding, and they'll need to be separated. And one of the other things with vermicompost, this is like free gold for the garden.
So Sue, where do you get your worms at? I noticed that, could I just go out and dig some up out of the yard?
Well, you can. These worms happen to be red wigglers. And you can find them in your garden, but the best way is to actually order worms, which you can go online and just type in earthworms, and you would get the red wigglers, which are the composters. And just for information, these are different than the night crawlers. The night crawlers are those big worms, and they like to crawl up and then they burrow down. These are the true composters. They're the ones who are going to eat your garbage. Just going backwards a little bit, when I'm going to be sorting these worms later, because I want to reuse them to eat more garbage, this newspaper is also going to be great fertilizer and mulch for the garden.
Oh, okay.
So it's wonderful to lay.
Just lay it right on top of the ground?
Right on top of the ground, and it will decompose.
Oh, that's a great idea. So tell me what else you've got here with the containers, Sue. This is the one that you purchased here, and it's a really neat setup.
Yes.
So why is it, before we can move on, okay, why is it stacked up?
Okay, the reason it's stacked up is we're going to, the worms like to move up. They like to move from low to high, because we're going to demonstrate how you actually make their bedding, and also that you put the food in the bedding. Okay. And as they come up the holes, then they will leave this beautiful black stuff behind, which is the vermicompost that you're going to put in the garden.
So once they've eaten everything here, they're going to look for new food.
Exactly.
I see.
Exactly.
So do you have any other kind of containers here that we can look at?
Yes, I do, because many of us are on a budget and we want to be able to do things inexpensively. And so one recommendation is that you can purchase like a Rubbermaid container. So what's neat is this container will fit right in here, and then all the liquid will go to the bottom, and that liquid is also extremely valuable to put on your plants. You can use it on your house plants, use it in the garden, and because the worms don't like things to be too wet.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead. You want to try to put some compost together soon? We'll show how that's done.
Yeah, let's show how you make a bed. Okay. So again, we're going to use one of the trays that I purchased, and one of the first things I'm going to do is put a little bit of newspaper on the bottom, because I want to just be able to catch. This is not unnecessary stuff, but anyway, it's nice if this is the bottom piece. You want to put newspaper or cardboard on the bottom, so it will kind of hold the worms as you're putting other trays on top and hold some of the compost.
They'll break that down and work their way through it eventually. Sure.
Yes, yes. So one of the things they need is we're going to start for the bedding. We're going to use some of this nice shredded paper. And Andy, you can help me.
Oh, sure, sure.
So
what we're looking for, you just want this moist, kind of a well-wrung sponge type of consistency or moisture level.
Exactly. And you can hand me some of the newspaper and I'll help with that too. And we're going to throw some of the wet newspaper in here. And this all is going to get decomposed and the worms will also eat their bedding.
Okay.
And
put some rice hulls in?
Yeah, put some rice hulls in there. I have 3 dogs and they track in a lot of debris into the house. And worms also need some grit because they don't have any teeth.
Right.
In order to digest their food, they have to have grit in their stomach. So it's perfect. I'll just take the floor sweepings and I just keep them in a bucket, and I also add this to the bedding.
Okay. So what you're doing here, then, all the stuff that you showed us so far is all the carbonaceous, the carbon or the brown material that's going to offset the high amount of nitrogen that's in our food scraps.
Right. You could make like a food packet. You could take some of your waste, put it on the newspaper. Oh, good. Here's a nice juicy tomato, onions. Oh, that reminds me, worms do not like salty things. I've tried popcorn hulls, and they really don't like that. But they love fruit. It's very interesting because you can see different kinds of food matters get decomposed on a faster basis.
Okay.
So I can make like a little packet. I just put it right there in the newspaper, wrapped it up, and I'll just put it in the bedding, and I can put it on a corner, and the worms will gravitate towards that.
Kind of cover it up a little bit.
Cover it up a little bit.
Okay.
And another way I can do it is, which I often do, is just dump it in.
You'll dump and run.
Dump and run. Just dump the whole goop in there. And then I would take some newspaper, and generally I do wet the newspaper because it keep it moist. The worms prefer their temperature to be between 40 and 80 degrees.
And if you start getting some fruit flies, some off odors, another way would be to just add more of your carbon material, like the rice hulls or the more paper, something like that.
That's right. And as a worst case scenario, I have in the weather, I've just taken the whole tray outside, let the fruit flies go out, and then bring it back in.
Okay, they get a little out of hand.
They get a little out of hand. And also, when we're talking about the no-nos of food, citrus is another thing that they don't like.
Okay.
So it's okay if you put a couple orange peels in there, but I wouldn't put a large quantity.
So you gave us 3 things, CDM, right?
CDM, citrus, dairy, and meat are 3 items to not put in your vermicompost.
Okay, great. So do you have, then, Sue, some finished product that we could look at and see what we're shooting for with the vermicomposting?
Sure. This is some beautiful black material, and you can see still there's some of the little eggshells are in here. But anyway, you only need, when you're putting this around your plants, really just a couple teaspoons, because it's extremely rich and nutritious for the plants. They are such great eaters. It's amazing. 1 pound of worms can eat a half a pound of food in a day.
Wow. How do you know when it's ready? What's a typical time frame for you with your process? About how long does it take to get all the way through the process to where we have a usable product, from food scraps to that usable product?
All right. Usually it takes about a month. You can be adding food scraps, like every couple weeks put a packet of food. These are better than pets because you can leave them for like 3 months and come back and you will have the beautiful compost. You might lose some of the worms, but it's perfectly fine to go out of town and just let them. These are the best workers 24/7.
Great.
And I'd really like to show you, now that you've seen all this vermicompost, of the great things it's done in my garden.
Sure, let's go have a look at the garden. That'd be great.
All right. Andy, welcome to our community garden. I'd like to introduce you to my neighbor, Krisha.
Hey, Krisha, nice to meet you.
How are you?
Good.
Krisha has been a very important partner in developing this garden, and I'm going to let her discuss with you the garden. I'm going to go over and pick some ripe tomatoes.
Oh, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Sue.
Thank you.
Well, how are you guys using the compost down here in the garden? I know as I look around the plants, they look just wonderful, and this is a very warm time of the season. I don't know how much you guys are irrigating, but just tell us a little bit about the garden and how you guys are using this compost.
Well, the vermicompost that Sue used or showed you earlier, we just kind of add a little bit to each plant every so often, maybe every couple of weeks or so, just to give it that extra nutrient boost.
Sure, okay.
You've got weed suppression, you've got moisture control, and it really helps make everything easier for you to deal with.
I think that's a good point that you're making there, that the compost is part of a bigger picture.
Right.
And it's used with these other cultural practices, such as the mulch, to really enhance the benefits and get the best plant growth possible.
Right. It also helps to build your soil year after year after year if you keep adding this, because the cardboard and newspaper all break down, and as it keeps adding that nutrients back to the soil and that organic matter.
That's great. Yeah, let's go ahead and put some on these cucumbers here.
Okay. We're going to use some of the rough stuff that Sue brought down earlier. Okay. And you just kind of add it around. I kind of pull back some of this other compost and add it right into the soil and kind of spread it around, and really that's all you need to do. And I tend to cover it back up so it doesn't wash away if we get a good rain, and it just kind of adds to the plants. And then the worms get in there and do their thing if there's a little bit extra.
Looks easy enough. And so you're kind of just really using this as a fertilizer source, sort of not really a fast release and not exactly a slow release, but kind of in between.
Right.
Where it's going to release out over a few weeks, something like that.
Exactly. And like Sue said earlier, a little bit goes a long way. It's pretty nitrogen rich. So you don't need a whole lot, and we could probably use a lot of that to do the whole garden.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Everything does look good. Now you guys are using the compost tumbler over here also, and I think you're using the worms in the tumbler. Let's say we go take a look at the tumbler and see what see how that works also.
Great.
So this is the tumbler. Okay, we've pulled this out of the shade because with the worms living in here, this tumbler is being run a little bit differently than if it was just compost in here. So we pulled it out of the shade, the reason being we want to keep it cool for those worms to be able to live and really thrive in there. So tell us what you guys do with this, Krisha.
Basically, it's the same operation as the vermicompost in the Rubbermaids. It's just a larger scale. So you can add in your food scraps and your different leaf matter, whatever you want to put in there. It's just larger scale, and you flip it when you want to turn it and churn it up a little bit and make sure everything's mixed. And
let's go ahead and turn this over. I want to see how this works.
Okay.
Make sure I got that on there good.
Yeah. So basically you just flip it over a couple times. You're just mixing the stuff.
What you can see here now, this is the hose, so we need the fluid coming off the bottom, the liquid coming off the bottom. You can run out there, be able to fertilize with that, huh?
Yep. You can use some of that worm juice that I like to call it and make like a compost tea.
Okay, yeah.
And add it right to your garden as extra liquid fertilizer.
Well, thanks for showing us around, Krisha. It's been really nice. You guys got a beautiful garden, and
Thank you.
I think I'm ready to go find Sue and find some of those tomatoes she was picking.
All right. Thank you.